When we're talking about this issue, this rare leadership, this idea of remaining relational and returning to joy and eye contact, and where do you find it working the most so far? In that, how have people live this out in their homes? But you even wrote a book on the workplace,
right,
about this very thing. Where do you see it taking place the most? In the workplace, or is the response that you're getting, is that from other people? I mean, in just everyday life.
Yeah, the number one response I'm getting is marriage. People, even when I teach leadership in workplaces, people are going like, "This has changed my marriage." Is the number one feedback I get, because they're learning how to stay relational with their husband or their wife in situations where they used to stop acting like themselves and become non-relational. The second is in the workplace. And I've had a few different business leaders now tell me about the transformation that has happened in their company when they began putting these principles into practice. One of them, a fairly large company, actually gives a rare leadership award every year, for the person who most models, mature leadership. They send out a text of the day to all their employees with the rare tip of the day, that sort of thing. There's a lot of, and they developed all this themselves just on the basis of running with the concepts that are there. So yeah, I've seen that's probably where I see it the most, is those two places. And then churches are hard nuts to crack, because all of us pastors were trained in seminaries that were basically anchored in that voluntarist approach to life. And it is not easy to overhaul your approach to living to become more attachment based before you get to all the performance stuff. And for most of us, our attachments have been based on our performance. Like, people like us because of our ability to solve problems, and our ability to lead, and our ability to be funny, and our ability to be insightful, and whatever it is. And so we get used to the idea that performance comes first and then come attachments. And so learning to flip that is a big move for a lot of us. And we're already so busy, it can feel like it's just not worth the effort, until we get, to a certain point in our ministry, realize that we've lost everything. Because I never really mastered the attachment part of all of this. I think that's the number one thing that's killing leadership in all forms of our culture, is people have flipped those things for too long.
And they've placed it so much more on performance rather than the attachment of relationships.
Right. So one of my favorite stories in rare leadership of the workplace is comes from Margaret Heffernan, who talks about super chickens. And the idea here is
I'm looking it up because I remember writing about it in the book.
So I like it. First of all, just because super chickens is fun. But so there was a study done, I believe it was Purdue University, in which they were trying to breed super chickens who would produce more eggs. So they're measuring results. And all they're doing is measuring results. And that is, so every generation of chickens, they took out the top producers by most eggs per chicken and put them in a group. And they did this for 6 generations while they tried to breed super chickens who would be producing more eggs per chicken. So what they found when they got done with 6 generations of this was that the normal chickens, all right, the average chickens, were actually producing slightly more eggs per chicken at the end than when they started. They found in the super chicken group, only 3 of them were still alive. And what was happening was they were actually predator chickens. These chickens their results looked better than the other chickens, because they were pecking the other chickens and keeping their production down. And so by comparison, they were bullies. They were bully chickens. And so what happens, and so there's a clear leadership lesson here, right? And that is, if the only thing we measure is results, we are more likely to promote bullies and predators than maturity. And that's why you can't just say, how big did you grow this? How many sales did you get? How many, whatever, because what happens is, if you only measure results, then you often end up collecting predators at the top of the food chain in whatever it is that you're trying to create. And the whole thing becomes toxic. So I think that's the number one reason why cultures become toxic, is that we are promoting you know, these bullies and predatory leaders instead of the more mature leaders who keep relationships bigger than problems. When you can, it takes some discernment to separate those out, right? But if you've been in a setting that's run by mature people, they get results, but it's a completely different culture. And if you're in a place where it's all about results and whatever we got to do with the culture to tinker with to get those results, that's what we're going to do. That's what creates toxicity.